The only thing Lotax is enthralled to is gooning. This is Normal Men, a podcast from four men who are clinging desperately to normalcy in an era when that's asking a bit too much. I'm George in Charlotte.
In DC, I'm Proctor Malone.
In outer Florida, I'm low-tax speedrun enjoyer.
And I'm Ed in Boston. I made a real mistake. Yeah. I pressed the button to record this episode, so I'm stuck with the football talk.
I mean, it's Super Bowl Sunday, Ed. What exactly did you think was going to happen?
I can hope, George.
Well, he was hoping we would address the main issue that is occurring right now, and that is the Fallout finale from Tuesday.
I haven't watched any of it, so I
haven't watched any of season 2 yet. It's on my to-do list, but I watch so little TV these days.
I thought it was really inappropriate that when the ghoul turns Robert House's computer back on and asks where his family is, House says that he'll only tell him if the ghoul agrees to jack off in front of him. That's
we're a gooning culture now, man. I mean, there's not much we can do about it.
Oh, why did you have to say that?
I appreciate the Bethesda people are gooners, but we don't have to do that, or at least put a warning up. You know, come on.
Less than 90 seconds into the episode, and Lotax is talking about masturbation. I think that is a new record.
That is a new record.
Which way is that a new record? Sorry.
Yeah, we usually work that out in the green room, so to speak. That voice you hear is Professor Mike Boylan-Kolchin, coming at us from, I assume, Austin, Texas, where he's got
that's right
good weather, unlike the rest of us right now. He's here to talk to us about space, the final frontier, and some of our billionaire overlords' current delusions about it.
And how we're going to build data centers on the moon, baby.
I don't even think they're thinking moon. They're going free orbit. I mean, they're not... It's maybe an
There's
even
a lot of
worse
real estate
idea.
Out there. It's going to be great. Yeah, plenty of space in space.
I guess the one thing we can say about space for sure is that there is a lot of it and there's not much up there. But other than that...
But everything that is terrible for all of this.
Yeah, so in case you don't follow the totally ridiculous arc of Elon Musk as closely as the rest of us perverts do, the latest idea is that SpaceX, which last week merged with XAI, which had previously merged with the website formerly known as Twitter. Yeah, that's a sentence I wish I didn't have to say because it makes no sense. And as someone that does financial markets for a living, it makes even less sense to me. This company has now created a new raison d'etre and is going to build data centers in space as its primary mission. They're pivoting away from trying to get to Mars because their efforts to get to the moon with the sort of larger of the two rockets they operate are falling behind the pace that NASA wants, and they may lose contracts there. So Mars is off the table. We're doing moon and low Earth orbit data centers. Silicon Valley has decided this is like a really good idea, and it's sort of understandable to think about why. If you need to build a data center on planet Earth, one of the biggest constraints to doing that is human beings getting in your way, right? Either you have to buy the land from somebody, or you have to get permits for it, or maybe there's a local group that wants local government to step in and get in the way of it. You have to worry about taxes and how that all works. You have to worry about sourcing other rights, like, for instance, water or energy. What if instead we just had free real estate?
On Earth, you have to deal with NIMBYism, but laudatory.
Right, exactly. In space, none of this applies, basically. However, there are other problems, and that's where Mike comes in. So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your space qualifications, as it were?
Sure. Well, I'm a professor of astronomy at the University of Texas at Austin, and I should say that nothing I say here should be construed as being the fault of or attributable to University of Texas at Austin. These are all my personal thoughts. But, I've been a professor for, I guess, over 12 years now, and as a theoretical physicist, I basically spend my time thinking that I know everything and can explain everything. So those are some qualifications.
Awesome. You're exactly the kind of guest we love then. So when I think of astronomy, and obviously this is sort of a 12-year-old understanding of astronomy, but when I think of astronomy, the first thing I think of is someone looking up into a telescope, or maybe Jodie Foster in Contact, like this sort of type of person. What's it like being an astronomer day to day? Like what are you spending all your time doing? Because I'm sure it's not that simple caricature.
Trying to look like Jodie Foster most of the time. I think that the day to day can vary a lot. I mean, I spend a fair bit of time teaching and advising students. I spend a fair bit of time wrangling with colleagues about anything from very important matters to very mundane matters. There's a lot of time is spent doing research, and for professors, much of that is sort of advising students and postdocs, going to journal clubs, just talking about what's going on out there in the world of astronomy. And there's a lot going on these days because of JWST, lots of other things like that. So, day to day, there's not a lot of structure always, but there's always more than enough to do, sadly. Yeah.
Just going to put my Proctor hat on, and JWST is the James Webb Space Telescope, which
is
apologies, a big deal.
We know many feldspars here and whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about the JWST. Why is it not just pointing at Alpha Centauri or Proxima Centauri B or C, whatever it is, to tell us if the aliens are there?
Mike, can you tell us what Proxima Centauri A and B, or B and C are?
Wait, before we get there, I should note that all of my understanding of astronomy and physics comes from watching the universe and falling asleep.
You haven't seen Contact?
I have seen Contact. I don't remember it.
Contact rules. I'm sorry. It's a great movie.
It is.
Yeah, well, so I think what Lotax is talking about is the nearest planet that we know of that is out of our solar system is Proxima Centauri B, I think. And that is certainly an interesting case for studying, for looking at life in the universe. Unfortunately, it's just because it's the closest doesn't mean it's the lamppost we want to look at. There's a lot of conditions we think of are relevant for life, and we want to be able to see certain markers for that. And it's not really clear that Proxima Centauri B is the right one. And as somebody who actually thinks of things on the other side of the universe, not the nearest things we can, not a measly 4 light years away, we're talking about things that are 40 billion light years away. That's the exciting stuff. I am really pleased we don't spend all our time staring at Proxima Centauri B.
So is that your area of focus then? Like early, because the further you look away, the further back in time you're looking, right? Like that's kind of the intuition there.
Yeah, that's right. So I spend a lot of time thinking about a bunch of different stuff. I think about some of the nearest by galaxies for understanding the nature of dark matter, but I also, with JWST and its exciting results about the early formation of galaxies, I've been thinking a lot about that. But also, I spend most of my time not looking through telescopes. In fact, I spend none of my time looking through telescopes. I'm a theorist, so I spend a lot of time running computer simulations or doing a calculation wrong in one of the many ways that it can go wrong and getting very frustrated. That's actually most of my day is getting frustrated.
Relatable.
Yeah, but so, I think that for me, compute is actually something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I'm always interested in these sort of where they're putting data centers, where they're putting compute capabilities, because we always need more computation for doing the kind of work that I do. I run large computer simulations that try to start with the initial conditions of the universe, put in the laws of physics we know, and see if we can pop out with Will Stancil, tweets or whatever in the end. That's the ultimate goal.
So you can make it stop?
Just got to put our best foot forward there. If there's anyone else out there.
Jodie Foster hurriedly typing. Actually, the line goes up into the computer.
I know it's too useful for theoretical physics, but if we could figure out a universe where he's not posting, I would like to live there.
The great filter is everyone just figuring out that we do stancilism here on Earth and we shouldn't be talked to.
He's going on Mount Rushmore of posters. Like, we all acknowledge
He
that,
might
right?
be going on Mount Rushmore.
I wouldn't put Will on the level of Drill or JCO or pre-2017 Trump, but Will is on Mount Rushmore there.
Proctor's face right now is just...
That was
He's like, I can't believe I have to listen to this. So, getting back to your area of expertise, Mike, when you're talking about compute, are you using GPU-based compute, or are you using other processes? Like, are you directly competing with data centers for resources in that sense?
Yeah, that's a great point. We're mostly using CPU so far, and part of the reason is that the simulations that I run require a lot of interconnectivity and a lot of memory per processor, and that's not really the forte of GPU. GPU is just, let's churn through this. If we have a problem where we can split it up into 1 million pieces and each core can just run with that, that's sort of what you really want to do on a GPU. If you have to send information back and forth a lot between the processors and you have to have a lot of memory, and for example, we split up the universe into particles to simulate it, and each particle has a bunch of properties, and the evolution of all those particles depends on the evolution of every other particle. So there's a sort of very interconnected web. And I think given the way that compute is going, people are trying to adapt this to GPUs as well, or offload as much as possible, do these kind of hybrid systems. But for now, CPU-based machines are really what we're doing our work on. So it's not a direct competition, I'd say. It's a competition in the sense that people aren't building as many CPU machines now because of all the compute that's being done with GPUs.
Right. So just to make that more explicit, there are only a certain number of facilities in the world that can produce the sort of very, very small pieces of silicon that you need to run a phone, a car, a supercomputer, a data center, whatever. And that capacity is sort of allocated depending on what the market demand is. You know, there's also capacity for memory that's similar. Different kinds of memory can be produced in similar facilities, and so you can sort of allocate between different kinds of memory there. But at the end of the day, you can sort of only produce so much compute at one time, and right now that's substantially all going to GPUs, or a vastly higher share of it than has typically been the case historically. They are building more of them, including in Arizona, so you know, supply does respond, but yeah, there is competition there for sure.
Be fair, Apple also bought all of it.
Yeah, because everyone else was buying iPhones. That's
I mean, my iPhone is directly competitive with Mike's research, and I'm sorry about that, but my iPhone is very nice.
And you're winning as usual. My research is never the one that's coming out on top. Yeah.
Don't worry. The memory problems we are all in the middle of hit everyone equally. If you've looked at a computer lately,
listen, I need those extra 5 frames per second on Metro Last Light or whatever it is.
Are you doing this podcast from 2015?
I can't tell if that's a gooning thing or video games.
No, it's a video game.
It's a gaming thing.
From the ancient past.
Wasn't that long ago. Come on.
I actually don't even remember.
So, Mike, tell us a little bit about what it's like to be in space. And obviously, space is not a uniform place. So maybe when we say what it's like in space, I mean in low Earth orbit, inside the orbit of the moon, or, you know, so up to geosynchronous if you want, or just in the near environs of Earth's atmosphere, but not inside Earth's atmosphere. What's it like up there?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is Earth's atmosphere provides us with a lot of shielding of a tremendous amount of nasty stuff that happens out there. So the sun is constantly emitting particles that would be damaging to electronics, would be damaging to humans. And, you know, so as you go out there, certainly it's colder, right? There's no oxygen. There's a lot more harmful stuff out there. There is a lot more sunlight, which is good for doing these kinds of things. There's power, the source of power you could get with solar, but also the same kind of thing is very prone to damaging solar arrays, these highly charged particles that are moving very fast. And so you get a lot of issues with things like that. Even there are things like micrometeorites that can come and hit you out there. And I think one of the worst things that's there nowadays is just a lot of other satellites. We're throwing satellites up there like crazy. And by we, I mean not me. It's mostly Elon Musk, right? But I think there are various Chinese organizations that are planning to put up a bunch of telecommunication satellites. So the sort of ecosystem of human-made material in space has really exploded over the past few years, and that's nothing compared to what's coming, whether we want it or not, over the next decade or so. And if these plans for putting data centers in orbit, that's going to be just exponentially worse. And just to put in context why that's bad, the more stuff you have up there, the harder it is to control the environment, the more likely it is that a couple of these things will collide. Now, colliding is bad, obviously, for the two objects that collide themselves, but it can also be really damaging for a lot of other objects out there, because then the debris starts to set up a whole field that you have to avoid. So already the Starlink satellites are having to go through various evasive maneuvers on a semi-regular basis. And this is just going to be sort of a continual problem now. So I guess you could argue, well, if we throw enough AI compute up there, AI can do all the evasive maneuvers. But I think that that's sort of a wishful thinking solution here. So I guess nothing is easier in space, right? The only thing that's easier there is you have direct access to sunlight that's more intense than we have on Earth. But nobody says, let's go into space. This is easier to do things. It's a harsh, inhospitable environment. We've all seen The Martian. There's just lots of stuff that can go wrong. You can't get to it because it's in space. So, you better have a good reason to do something in space rather than on Earth.
It's hard to imagine that they're going to be able to maneuver those little or those little Starlink satellites for long, just because of reaction mass, right? Like, you need to refuel those thrusters at some point. They're not very big, and you don't have to create very much delta V to like move out of the way of something, but like you do have to fire a thruster and then refire a thruster to get back to whatever course you were on. You don't do that so many times. And if you're this tiny little satellite, because they are very small, like only so much percentage of that can be your fuel. And you run out of room pretty quickly before you're in a gravity type situation, to name a third excellent sci-fi movie. We're now on Contact, The Martian, which very near and dear to my heart. That was my wife and I's second date, was going to that movie, and Gravity. All three excellent in the space field. Anyhow.
So I know nothing about space, but I, for my sins, know a lot about computers. And like, even on Earth, we have substantial problems with literal cosmic rays, right? Like, one of the major differences between like a data center computer, like a big boy computer, and the things that we buy at home is what's called error correcting RAM, right? Like, secretly there is more memory cells in the RAM in a industrial computer than in your home computer, because on average, given how dense this stuff is, a reasonably sized computer in a data center can be expected to see a bit flip in RAM between once a day and once a week. And so that gets really bad on Earth. And we have an atmosphere up there. We have a magnetic field to push away a lot of this. And then instead space, right? Like, this is a big part of why the space shuttle used a 386 from before I was born, like through its entire existence, is just because the thing is so big, it's relatively hard for cosmic rays and other interference to actually hit something important in a useful way.
Yeah, that's right. Even on Earth, sometimes you can do this without the error correcting chips. You can also just have much thicker chips, but then you can't put as many onto a compute region. And so there's no easy way around this. You definitely have to do something to mitigate this, even on Earth, and mitigation is much harder in space. Absolutely.
And Elon Musk doesn't know what any of this stuff is, so.
Well, why should he? He's just the smartest guy on Earth and in space, who owns the space company and whatever.
He's an ideas guy.
And we haven't even talked about the heat dissipation problem yet, which is that, you've got waste heat as a massive problem for terrestrial data centers. And it seems like there's kind of a community split over whether or not that problem gets harder or easier in space.
Well, it definitely gets harder, I would say. But yeah, I think you're right. So, on Earth, the way we do this is we have some medium that takes the heat away. Either it's air, you blow air over the chips, you have water-cooled chips, something like that. And so people think, okay, you're out in space, it's cold. Why should we worry about this? But that doesn't really help you. Basically, the way the heat gets away is by radiating. And it's completely inefficient to just radiate off of a chip itself. You need to have some other radiator with much larger surface area. And so that's very doable, but then you run into the other problem of it's extremely expensive to launch things into space, and the more mass you're adding, the more expensive it gets. And so this is, it doesn't get easier here. So I think there's more sunlight, absolutely. You can get the power directly, but you do have to radiate the heat away. That is the biggest, I think, initial issue. And it's just not easy to get up the sort of mass of stuff you need to do this on any kind of reasonable scale. But when I was thinking about this a little bit, I can see it now from Elon Musk's point of view. I can't see it from anybody else's point of view, because basically his car company is going down the tubes. His AI company is behind everybody else's, and it's not clear that more than one or two are going to emerge from this sort of major bubble. He's running up against Microsoft, against Google, against other giants, but he kind of has a monopoly on launching stuff into space. And so if he can basically get it where everybody says we have to launch a ton of crap into space, that's going to put a lot of money into Elon Musk's pocket. And so I think from that perspective, I can see why Elon Musk is pushing this. I can't see why anybody else is pushing this at any level. I mean, basically the argument that Google is making is that by 2035, it might become cost effective relative to today's energy costs on Earth to launch things into space to make these data centers. But of course, there's going to be a lot of improvement between now and 2035 on Earth. And so I don't really see the argument that you can make that this is going to be efficient at any level. And that's not even to say what's going to happen to AI between now and then. Are things going to look totally different? So I don't know. I'm not an optimist here, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, the way the AI compute need is going to look is there's going to be a huge upfront need for training, and that's going to probably be a lot more intensive in terms of real resources to build than the inference demand, because inference per use is a lot cheaper, a lot smaller per model, say. The way to think about this is if you're building a training set, you're building like a one single-use Manhattan, or like an atomic bomb, like the Manhattan Project. Whereas if you're building inference infrastructure, you're building like the freeway system where people are using it all the time. So one's like a stock and one's like a flow is another way of putting that. I think that's like simplifying a lot, but you need all of the training up front, right? Like the huge growth of inference compute is going to be a thing, but it's not going to look the way, it's not going to have as much pressing need for it as the training is going to, because the inference side of it is based on the training. Like it's sort of a one-step, two-step. So by 2035, who knows like whether we're even going to need to build more compute, because we're going to have built so much for training. It's not clear to me that won't be stranded CapEx at that point. I mean, you're talking across the big companies, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, well over $500 billion worth of CapEx in the next 12 months alone. The physical, how much they can actually put into the ground and how much they're going to put into the ground is going to be massive over the next 5 years, while that cost spread that you're talking about between terrestrial and in space purely as a function of lift cost is going to be enormous. So yeah, I like to your point, if Google's saying, oh, by 2035, we could be closer to cost parity, sure, maybe, but like at that point, aren't we probably going to have a bunch of compute that's freed up here on Earth because we've built so much already? We'll see. That would kind of be my take, though.
Yeah, and it's important to note that like this stuff doesn't go bad, right? Like this isn't quite the same as video games, right? Where you have a lot of people chasing the absolute newest stuff. AWS still sells like their second generation training and inference chips while they are on generation 3. And people are very happy with it because they're cheaper.
It sort of, right? Like the cutting edge goes bad, but then, and there is wear and tear on the chips. But even then, if you've built all the rest of the infrastructure and you're just swapping out the chips, that alone doesn't justify throwing all that stuff in orbit, right? Like you still have the powered shell and all that.
Yeah, I mean, that problem gets worse if you're putting the stuff up in orbit.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But like failure rates on that stuff are not as high as you might think. None of it is, moving parts. Stuff does fail, but like if you have something like an Ampere thing, which is 3-4 years old at this point,
it's not made by Ford.
True, and two of us drive Ford on this podcast, so now I was
going to say it's definitely not made by Stellantis. So
yeah, fair.
Down 28% on Friday, by the way.
If it's 4 years old, it's still very useful for this stuff, and like there's no real indication that's going to change anytime soon. We're going to have it's either going to be e-waste or it's going to still be in use somewhere where you can soak the power budget, because that's one of the biggest things is that like it's not universal, but older stuff tends to use more power. So you do need to know how to deal with that. But like we have solutions for that. It's called cover Wyoming in solar panels, right? Like this is solvable.
I could totally foresee like 5 years from now, there being a huge wave of, okay, we have all this powered shell. So we have a data center that's got a roof. It's got all the cooling equipment. It's got all the power infrastructure hooked up to it. It's got all the data infrastructure hooked up to it. But we don't need, these are 5-year-old, what were cutting edge at the time chips, but they're degraded or because of extreme use, or they're just not at the cutting edge anymore, so we can't be profitable with them. Rip the chips out and let's put in a bunch of other chips that are much cheaper but are better suited to inference and run everything else on that. At that point, like because the powered shell is sitting there, you're much better off than launching everything into orbit because you're swapping out chips essentially, right? Like I think that's the way it'll end up going.
My point is those chips still don't go away, right? Someone will go buy them. Like 5 years from now, I will have H100s in my house because I will also have 200 amp service. It's fine.
Wait, what do you not have 200 amp in
I'm
Boston?
Stuck on 100. I can get it, but my house is old, so it has 100 amp.
Oh.
I have fun smart breakers instead.
Oh.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I got a stove we should talk about at some point. You can get a induction stove with a 3 kilowatt-hour battery that plugs into a 120 volt outlet.
I have plenty of 240.
Okay.
I have a wood shop, thank you.
Anyhow,
but yeah, like people are going to go make more data centers with the old stuff, right? Like you see this today. There are 12-year-old CPUs that you can go get at like OVH or something like that, where like they're very happy to take your money for hosting this stuff. These things are still fine for like most things. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of that in terms of like the AI stuff, right? Like you're going to see tiering of just how much compute do you need to do the thing, especially as these models kind of seem to hit a little bit of diminishing returns type thing. You're likely to see them get more efficient rather than particularly bigger at this point, I think. And like, it's kind of a self-correcting thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that George's point about the inference use cases versus churning out the next frontier model is very well taken, because orbital data centers are poorly suited to inference by contrast. You've got latency issues there that you're not going to have for terrestrial data centers. Because, inference, if you've got actual users that are touching this on a moment-to-moment basis, you've got to be talking to them on a moment-to-moment basis. And when you put things further away, it gets harder to work with that. When you put things in space, at some point that latency becomes an issue. But it is potentially well suited to the developing a frontier model thing, where you put up your big capital investment into space and then you let it cook for 6 months.
I mean, no, it's not, because like if you want to put 24 H100s in space, you're going to now suddenly be talking on the order of like kilowatts of power, and you can get that, but like you can get that here.
Well, I think what Proctor meant is setting aside some of the other physics issues that we've talked about.
Other than that, Ms. Lincoln, how was the play?
Wait, we can't say other than physics. I'm here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right, Mike.
Get his ass on the play.
Get their asses, Mike.
Way down the law of thermodynamics. Yeah, I mean, I thought we'd established that in space, the power issue is in some ways simpler, right? Like everything else gets harder, but you have continuous sunlight. Like assuming that we're working through solar, power is what you have.
But you have to launch it.
Yes, you do.
I can go outside and put down solar panels right now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I wonder about with all of these calculations is, if you put a lot of effort into more efficient energy capture or generation on Earth, wouldn't this sort of render a lot of this moot? Because they're already talking about 2025, 2026 levels of understanding of the energy generation here. 2035 looks very different, I think, in terms of what we're capable of doing. And so it's just not very clear to me that that's a reasonable comparison to be making. Now, I think, an optimist would say, look, maybe we can solve some of the other problems in space, and that's possible. But I think it's more incumbent on people to explain why that's possible than why it's going to be possible to do things on the ground, where we understand sort of some of the difficulties sort of just through trial and error a lot more.
You said it was that 2035 number was from Google, right?
Yeah.
So really that means 2065 because it's going to be in beta for, 30 years.
Because it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, let's be real.
I think I would go further than saying it's a 2025, 2026 understanding of the energy system. I think it's a really revealing thing about the milieu that these guys are coming out of. Specifically, California, we tried subsidizing rooftop solar and we just created a duck curve. It's intermittent. It's a whole problem as the assumption of what the big problem is with solar energy. Whereas in space, because you can direct the panels to the sun at all times, there's no night, you lose that problem. If you look at coupling solar and 4-hour lithium-ion storage right now, you are basically at cost parity with natural gas, and it's only going to get cheaper, whereas natural gas is only going to get more expensive. And that's like on a upfront capital cost basis. That's not the levelized cost of energy. That's just like dollars pumped into facilities. So if you're at that point now where natural gas, which is the gold standard right now for fossil-based, not, baseload power, or really any baseload power, I guess. I mean, I think we don't need to talk about some of the other stuff that's not at scale yet, but like if that's your sort of gold standard, you're already cheaper with close to, it's still not intermittent, but or still not baseload to do solar plus 4 hours of battery, but it's getting closer, and the battery costs continue to drop in a way that means very soon it's not going to be solar plus 4 hours of battery, it's going to be solar plus 12 hours of battery. And at that point, you're basically there. So I really, really think this is a good example of very outdated thinking from a very specific set of group chats, as opposed to like some sort of novel understanding or like, creative way to solve a real problem.
I mean, given the group chats in question and their manifest criminal nature,
yeah,
I kind of mostly wonder how much of this is them thinking putting Grok at L5 means that you can get out of CSAM, right? Like I genuinely wonder if it's a regulatory or an attempt at that, because turns out that's not how this works. But like, there's no reason, none of this pencils out. This is mass hallucination bullshit.
Well, I think that's a great point about the regulatory environment also, because, obviously in the Trump era, there's not much environmental regulation that's going to be done on Earth, but, it will not be the Trump era forever. And there's a ton of issues that come up on Earth. I think Propter referred to a bunch of these. You need to buy the land, you need to pay whatever tiny taxes you're paying on the land, you need to have environmental regulations on the land. Space is kind of unregulated at that level. And so, there's other reasons to hope for that for them.
Excuse me, Mike. It is going to be the Trump era forever, because they are going to assign 0.12 ICE agents to every precinct in 4 states. And therefore, we should all give up.
I mean, that one lone foot disembodied and sitting next to a polling place in Georgia is going to do a lot of work.
That's a common error. It's actually 12,000 ICE agents in one precinct in Minnesota, 0 everywhere else. So it's a bunch of guys named Juan from South Texas who are going to be in Minnesota freezing their asses off. Sorry, Juan.
I think we've spent more time thinking about this than any of the people who are trying to literally launch this into space.
Well, you're welcome, tech overlords. Just listen to the show, right?
Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah, I think Mike's frame makes a lot of sense. That this is basically Musk talking his book. It's clear that the Magnificent Seven are thinking in terms of lots of different directions that this potentially could go, and that they're trying to future-proof. So it may be that's part of the reason for interest by parties who are not named Elon.
I'm sorry, the Magnificent Seven?
Yeah, it's like the 7 largest tech companies. It's a stock market thing. Don't worry about it.
What? No, the Magnificent Seven are the 7 ACC schools who are trying to get the hell out.
Also, no.
Also, no.
Who are the 7 tech companies? Okay,
Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, Nvidia, and the criminal syndicate that is Tesla.
Correct.
Yes.
Good job, Ed. Congrats. You could be a portfolio manager.
No, we are not putting Tesla in that grouping.
It's not we. It's the convention. They're in there. This is not a new term. This has been around for like 5 years, dude.
Yeah. Oh, for Christ's sake.
It's bad.
Fucking Wall Street people. Everybody on there has brain damage.
I agree. We do. Yeah.
Worse, the tech people use it now. It's like, oh, I'm going to go work for a Mag 7 and I want to push them out a window.
Yep. Is it better or worse than hyperscalers? I think hyperscalers is slightly less bad, but...
Hyperscaler at least means something?
How many megatons are our ICBMs?
Not enough.
Not enough. 1.2? I don't know.
I think we should take Zarbamba and make it bigger.
No. What we really need, and this is getting more into Mike's area of expertise, we need to drop tungsten rods on the entire San Francisco Bay Area.
Rods from God. All right, let's do it.
We can extract a few key burrito making teams beforehand and then just let it rain.
No, we're not extracting. No.
Why?
Mike is not going to sign on for that because he's in Austin where they actually know how to make burritos and stuff. We are not extracting burrito teams from the Bay Area. These people don't know what they're doing. We do not need 4 pounds of rice in a burrito.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, Lotax, but I cannot get a super shrimp burrito anywhere else that is of sufficient quality. We do, in fact, need to cultivate this. We need to, I saw today that the terrifying blue ring octopus is of least concern by like the international animals go away. No, we are going to be cultivating this burrito for the rest of time.
What was that tangent into Australian poisonous octopi?
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
What was that?
Ed has been doing a deep dive on poisonous mollusks.
So it was like 2 a.m. I was working on some stuff, and then suddenly, like, the internet took me to like those terrifying octopodes with like the
octopi.
Whatever, with like the blue rings that get brighter when they're angry.
Yeah, the Australian ones.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this planet is horrifying.
No, it's just Australia that's horrifying.
Look, is Australia on this planet, Lotax?
Like, everything there is trying to kill you. That's why we sent all the British criminals there.
Including the Australians.
Do you guys do lobster burritos in Maine? Is that an unexploited market niche right there?
I have never had a lobster burrito, but I want one now.
That was Proctor Malone.
Proctor let you know.
Just encouraged that.
Look, there's no such thing as a bad burrito. No, that's not true. Who am I talking about?
That is absolutely true. You all saw Nick's post the other week.
Worse, I've seen a burrito in England.
Oh, actually, see, there's a good story about this. They did this burrito chain in England this was right at the start of my career in finance. This is like 2011 or 2012. They wanted to do Chipotle, but for British people, and they sold a bunch of bonds. And one of the benefits of the bonds was you could go and get a free burrito at any time as a bondholder. and they were called the Burrito bonds. There was a whole series about it on FT Alphaville. I think they ended up in bankruptcy, which should surprise no one because you're trying to sell British people Mexican food. First of all, that's the issue.
I certainly hope so, because Chipotle for British people is a terrifying vision of blandness.
That's just Chipotle, but without the spicy stuff like guac.
Right. That's like what is it? Chipotle with like ketchup or something? Instead
I thought
of
this
salsa?
whole thing was going to segue into Brianna Gray white people taco discourse here.
No. We're making fun of British people right now, Mike. We'll get to her.
Okay.
So no, Chilongo.
You should do that though. Like, okay, which of you four is putting black olives on your burritos?
Well, if I decant them, absolutely no. Not putting this at all.
I'm putting undecanted black olives on my burrito. So with the juice and everything, it's just
real
slopping around
sicko stuff there.
Yes. No, this is not a thing we do, Bree.
Okay, so more than 1,000 people bought 5.8 million pounds in Chilongo. Chilongo just means like someone from Mexico City, but this was like the name of the chain in England. The investments were dubbed quote unquote burrito bonds because if you invested more than 10,000 pounds, you could claim one free burrito per week. So they did this back in the 2010s, and yeah, they ended up getting nuked, and I think they lost like everything essentially. So yeah, don't get rich quick schemes that we think are very silly and shouldn't be attempted. Launching data centers into orbit and selling Mexican food to British people.
We already sent them British food. We sent them the old El Paso kits. Just follow the fucking directions, you limey assholes.
I will say, using an old El Paso taco night kit is danger warning for putting black olives on your tacos. Like, those two things are almost a circle. That
explains a lot about my childhood.
Yeah.
The black olives should not be black olives in general do not belong anywhere near tacos. Olives are for Greek and Italian people.
See,
maybe Spaniards. Southern Europe in general. No, Proctor. The Brits need to just follow the fucking directions on the box.
Proctor, can you California explain this man something?
Okay, so number one, the black olives are the directions on the box for Old El Paso. Like that's baked in.
Probably.
But what I hadn't realized about this whole discourse, and just to jump back for those of you who have managed to miss this so
bastard.
far, is that we were talking about the practice of putting black olives on tacos specifically, not on your nachos, where reasonable minds may differ, not in your burritos, which is madness, but on your tacos.
Hard shell tacos, yeah.
Hard shell tacos, yes. I had not realized that this was an economic story. That number one, I don't know how I didn't know this, but apparently black olives are a California innovation. That this is something that did not exist before the bright minds in California decided to grow black olives, and they grew a lot of them. So you have a situation where you have a bunch of black olives getting grown in a region that is kind of adopting some facsimile of Mexican food for the mass American palate at the same time. So it's basically the same story as like the Moscow Mule, where you have this thing that we think of as a regional, maybe culinary peculiarity that is just directly driven by mass economic trends at the time, which is in the case of the taco, you had this culinary adoption at the same time as you had a surplus of black olives, and you needed to find people who wanted to buy black olives to put them on things. With the Moscow Mule, it was I think there was oversupply of all three ingredients at the same time, right? Like
this sounds exactly like AI. We invented this thing and we're going to shove it down your throat until you hogs actually embrace it.
So
yeah,
I have done some research in low tax minimal defense. I do not see any olives on the boxes of any old El Paso.
Thank you, Ed.
Dinner kit.
Thank you.
Except, and this is the picture is very low resolution, on oldelpaso.ca.
Oh God!
And I'm not going to look any further, so we're just going to close that tab.
Not escaping the accusations, Canada.
Okay. I grew up in a household that whose matriarch was from the Bay Area. And I can tell you, taco night when I was growing up always had black olives. Personally, in my current state, to me, this is not ideal. I never make quote unquote white people tacos with cheddar cheese and iceberg and, like hard shell tacos. That is not how I make tacos in my house anymore, because I am now like deep into Mexican cuisine and really, really prefer the more traditional taco, like a little bit of culantro, cebolla. That's kind of it. Un poquito de queso, but
I'm sorry, George is showing off, but now I'm just wanting to put... I want to put Cougar Gold on a taco now. I did
make Cougar Gold breakfast tacos this morning, but those were con tortilla de harina. They were much closer to what Mike would know as a breakfast taco in Austin than the proper taco de Mexico. So,
shots fired. All right, I see how it is. Yes.
Well, when I say proper taco de Mexico, I mean like it's not like one is better than the other or one is like whatever. I prefer the Mexican taco, but the Austin breakfast taco is a phenomenal contribution to humanity's culinary achievement pantheon, and I am fully in favor of it. I'm just saying it's a different thing. Absolutely. I will say, if people are enjoying white people tacos with, like, again, the ones I'm describing here are the hard shell taco with a bit of like the seasoned beef and cheddar cheese and iceberg and tomato and maybe some black olives. If you're enjoying that, go nuts. I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't be eating. Like have fun. I'm just saying I never make those anymore, and whatever. It's not for me.
No, take away the black olives. The rest of that is fine. If you want to do white people taco night, that's fine. Do not bring the black olives into this. I don't care what those perverts in California do. This is grifting. We're not doing this.
Honestly, the only time that I have ever had olives on a taco as like an adult was a fish taco in San Francisco. So like, I will say that's okay, but also you're already very far from the light of God at this point, right? Like you are in fish taco land, which is a different thing. And a delicious thing, but a different thing.
I do think that Brianna Joy Gray, so just before I say anything else, Brianna Joy Gray was the press secretary, I want to say, for Bernie Sanders. Is that the right role?
Comms
in
director, press secretary,
2020's primary?
I think on both runs, but
on both
I think
runs?
she was I think she was on the staff in 16, but she was the press secretary in 20. I don't remember what her role was in 16.
Got it. Okay. Nothing I am about to say should be construed as a general defense of Brianna Joy Gray, who has all sorts of really terrible takes and who I think is just off the reservation in a bunch of different ways. What I will say is that I think she had a really interesting observation about why tacos are not a good meal to present to your family around the holidays. And it comes down to labor, and it comes down to who is doing that labor. If you're presenting like a meal to your family at the holidays, you want it to look nice to a point. If this is a Tuesday night where you're just dishing a bit of sour cream out of the existing tub, you don't have to get a bunch of other dishes dirty, making it look nice on your dinner table. But around the holidays, if you've got family in from out of town, if it's a big group, like, you don't want to just be serving piles of stuff in plastic containers. Like, you want it to look a little bit nice, and that's going to involve a lot of dishes. Look, Low Tax is shaking his head. I'm just saying how I think the vast majority of people treat holiday meals. Okay, so that was the context of this original post she did, where she was talking about how
trough.
Like, tacos are bad for this, and because it creates a lot more work for whoever is doing the dishes, it involves a lot of time-intensive chopping to get all the ingredients, and decanting black olives as part of this was one of the examples she gave. Mike, you're right to laugh at it, but still, I mean,
whatever.
It is, as the person in my house who both cooks dinner and does all the dishes, doing a taco night where you have like a bunch of different toppings for tacos is creating a ton of work.
I just like the idea that, like, I really like to have my 1982 Bordeaux with this Christmas dinner, but I'm sorry, the decanter is occupied by
Listen, If you are serving tacos at a holiday family gathering, it is supposed to be a simple meal. Presumably, you're making turkey, a ham, a prime rib, whatever, for the main Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever meal. This is supposed to be just a quick meal. You do not need to get fancy with that. It's just the one holiday meal that you should be getting fancy with.
I agree, but like there's a difference between don't get fancy with it and just put out the sour cream in the tub that it came in from the store. Like I think those are two separate things.
I don't think there's a difference at all. Just put it out
Florida
in the damn
man
tub.
strikes again.
Just put it out in the damn tub.
Yeah.
Ed is
Anyhow,
with
I
me
think-
here. He
I
doesn't
think-
want to say it because he doesn't like the implications of that, but he's
I
with
don't
me.
like the implications, but I also grew up in Maine where, teeth are optional. So I kind of understand.
I just thought it was a really it was interesting to see how few people were focused on where a lot of the labor in the kitchen goes, as opposed to focused on the food itself. And I think we do that a lot with food discourse and with discussion of food, where we separate these two things into completely unrelated contexts, or we don't even think at all about the labor side of things. And if you spend a lot of time as the cook or as the person doing the dishes, you tend to have, especially when you're doing it for large groups of people, you tend to start thinking about this stuff really differently. And I thought it was interesting to see like where people's blind spots were there. So credit to Brianna Jo Gray for provoking a little bit of interesting discourse in that respect, in my opinion.
The really important thing is that in the show notes for this episode, we're just going to say that George defends Brianna Jo Gray.
I gave my qualifications. People can, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So, Mike, where is the best breakfast taco in Austin? Let's make some of your neighbors mad.
Well, I think there are a lot of good ones around. And one of the great things about Austin are a lot of, San Antonio also has tremendous breakfast tacos, but you can just go get a good one down the street at a gas station often. I really like the ones from Veracruz, all natural. Those are great. For the more sort of chain stores, Taco Deli does a pretty good breakfast taco. The Jess Special is solid. There's a place right by UT Austin campus, if anybody's ever around, Taco Joint. They also have one south of the river. They make some great breakfast tacos. But, I think it's hard to go wrong with, eggs and avocado and a meat and some cheese, Any combination thereof is delicious.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And to me, the key thing, or like the thing that most often gets overlooked in a taco, is the tortilla itself. And if you nail the tortilla itself, the rest of it is like the degree of execution or the degree of difficulty is very low, because if it's a high quality tortilla, the rest of it's going to taste really good together. And I have never had in Texas like a genuinely bad tortilla in a breakfast taco. I mean, partially because selecting for good places, but like that raises the bar of the whole experience.
Okay, so how do these breakfast tacos compare with the taquitos in Whataburger?
I wish I was able to make that comparison. I have never had a Whataburger taquito.
Wow.
I will probably keep that record going.
We ask the hard questions here.
Yeah.
Sometimes unanswerable.
I mean, it's Florida. We don't have, proper breakfast tacos.
Or
Taquito
electricity.
feels like an entirely different world of food somehow. I mean, the frying. I mean, I love a good taquito, but it's just, you can't be in the mood for a taco and end up eating a taquito somehow. It doesn't
fair.
scratch the
That's
same
fair.
itch somehow.
My reference for a taquito is a 7-Eleven roller taquito from when I was growing up. Like that's how I first came across a taquito, whereas like tacos are much more diverse. Like it's hard to anchor to one kind of taco, or harder to anchor to one kind of taco. But for like 10 years, the only thing I ever thought of when I thought of taquito was like coming off the roller at 7-Eleven. So even though the taquito is not just that, it's hard for me to get enthusiastic because, well, 7-Eleven rollers. So,
I mean, I think a taquito is properly understood as being part of the Dorado clade coming off of the greater taco tree.
Yes. That's absolutely true, but also, oh my God.
Why did you say those words?
None of those words are in the Bible.
Oh, God. Okay, so speaking of all things Texas, we have had a fun week in Texas politics. Last week, we discussed the special election in Fort Worth and the implications for the sort of national picture there. That was followed by what can only be described as a kind of zany slugfest in the Texas Senate primary and some really funny polling in the Texas Senate primary on the Republican side. So the Democrats are doing zany slugfest things, and the Texas Republicans appear to be doing zany self-immolation things. Proctor, do you want to walk us through some of the key developments here, and then we'll get Mike's take on everything?
Sure, I'll take the Dem side first. So, without getting too deep into the allegations, which are vague at best.
Just for reference here, Mike just covered his face with his hands.
Well, I can see a space tie-in. I don't like it.
Run.
So, the allegation, the Democratic primary, as we talked about before, for the Senate seat in Texas that's up in 2026 is between James Tallarico, who is a choir boy-looking progressive firebrand. He's a good speaker. And Jasmine Crockett, who is a sitting member of the House of Representatives, who is also a very good speaker and has garnered kind of a reputation as a progressive firebrand. In terms of how the Texas primary Democratic electorate is breaking down, Jasmine Crockett is getting upwards of 80% of the black Texan vote, and James Tallarico is ahead with whites to a large extent and the Latin vote to a smaller extent. The allegation is that James Tallarico, in conversation with someone who was at that point a supporter of his, who is no longer a supporter of his, referred to his prior opponent, Colin Allred, who is a black man, who was a former NFL linebacker and also a former congressman and a former candidate for Texas Senate, as a mediocre black man. There is no direct recording of this. The evidence of this is that the influencer he was talking to claims that this is kind of a choose your own adventure thing in terms of what you believe Tallarico actually said or intended to say or what have you. But you have people who are taking varying degrees of offense at the notion that you could refer to anyone, but particularly Colin Allred, who is, has by any objective standard had a pretty non-mediocre life to date as a mediocre black man. It's already a racialized primary for reasons that I think are kind of baked into a multiracial voting base. That, when you have affinity groups of people, they often tend to function like affinity groups and they like different candidates. And that means that you have big racial splits in the primary. But this has kind of supercharged that in a way. And certainly it's provided an avenue of attack for some supporters of Crockett's against Tallarico. And how that plays out, I think, remains to be seen. I haven't really seen any polling, maybe you guys have, that's downstream of this fracas. But this was a pretty closely contested primary before this all happened. The concern now is that, at least my concern is that we're going to get through this primary and have whoever the nominee is be somebody who's been significantly damaged by this kind of intramural fighting, to the point where it harms their chances in a GE.
As long as we're getting 37-point swings, it ain't gonna matter.
And we won't get a 37-point swing, but if we got a 20-point swing, that would be more than sufficient, and it wouldn't matter. Yeah. So, I think there's
the
that
environment
for sure.
Yeah, the environment such as it is, it wouldn't matter, and nobody's gonna remember this in 10 months or 9 months, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to compare. I think every indication I've gotten from people in Texas, and Mike, if I'm wrong on this, please correct me, but every indication I've gotten from people in Texas is that this is a regional fight, right? Like, this is Crockett coming out of the black political infrastructure in Dallas, and Tallarico coming out of a much more, I think one person described it to me as T-sippin infrastructure in Austin, sort of like normie lib, I think is the better way, is more how you would describe it. What's interesting to me is that Tallarico seems to sort of be associated with the DSA as well as that sort of white normie lib crew in a national valence, whereas Crockett is much more associated with, and I'm not trying to like put them 100% in either camp, but like sort of general associations. Crockett is much more associated with the Southern Black Democratic political culture around very, very high share of vote that votes as a bloc to preserve political power. That's a huge dynamic across the South, Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, This is a huge thing. And what I think is really interesting is not that these two camps are fighting or are trying to pick a winner, but that the DSA and the sort of Sunbelt, suburban, college-educated, white, moderate wing are the ones that are on the same side, because that hasn't really been a thing in recent history. If you think back to 2016, 2020, even a bunch of Senate campaigns since, that's not been how the Democratic coalition has sorted itself out. So I think that's really interesting. Maybe I'm overplaying that national dynamic a little bit. I don't know.
If I described Tallarico as Connor Lamb, but he could handle medium wings, would I be wrong?
That seems about right. I think another interesting dynamic there is that we're really seeing a lot of the nationalization of these individual Senate races. And I think that a lot of Crockett's support, she has significant support within Texas, of course, as well, but a lot of the infrastructure and push is coming from the more national level, whereas Tallarico is a state legislator now, and there's a lot more sort of built up support statewide. And I think we're seeing the sort of conflict of those sort of spheres a little bit here as well. And so I think it will be interesting to see how that plays out, whether this really is people in Texas are getting exercised about some of this stuff, or is it that there's sort of so much pressure for blue Texas from, Democrats at large, that this is sort of pushing people into a fight that didn't have to happen there. And I think with respect to Allred also, the other backstory there is he was in this race until Crockett announced, and then he dropped out because he didn't want to be seen as sort of competing with her. And so there's all kinds of stuff that's wrapped up in this, the racial, the national versus more local, and sort of what does the future of the Democratic Party look like, both I think physically and in terms of issues. I would say that they're actually pretty similar, I think, in terms of how they would vote, of course. So I don't think we're really talking about somebody, are we trying to get a Henry Cuellar versus an AOC here? These are people who will vote the same 97% of the time. And so people are probably rightly worried about what it means electorally here. But of course, a lot of that has to do with, as you all mentioned, the national environment and also what happens on that wild Republican side of things.
Very vibes-based, and I think the other thing we can say about both of them is that they fall down much more on the fighter side of the fight versus not fight split that we've talked about in the past on this podcast. So
yeah. There's an interesting stylistic difference between the campaigns, though, that we should probably talk about a little bit, which is the Crockett campaign. At least as of the last numbers I saw, it still isn't up on the air with television commercials. She's got plenty of money, but insofar as she's spending it, she's not spending it on TV, which is interesting for somebody who has substantially made her bones by going on TV and being really effective. Maybe she feels that she can get sufficient earned media that she doesn't need to pay for it. Maybe she's holding the money for the GE. Maybe she's spending it on social media. I don't know, and we're not going to know until we see some future reports. But we're 9 days out from the primary now, I think. And
the start of early voting, yeah, I think.
Yeah. So at some point, you got to figure that she's going to start spending the million, because she does have a good fundraising operation. But we're getting to the point where, you're going to have this contrast in what their campaigns think are important. And that seems to me to be more or less unrelated to the other issues of stylistic or identitarian contrast between these two candidates. So if you think campaigns are important and how you're running campaigns matters a lot, it may be that who wins this is decided more by what their campaigns decided to do than by the merits of the candidates themselves, qua candidates.
Yeah, I can't really imagine that if Crockett wins, money will be an issue moving forward for the general. So it's a little surprising to me not to see the ads, and she did enter the race very late. Again, I'm not a political strategist. I don't know what she's doing, and I'm not going to say that she's doing it wrong, because there are lots of ways to do this. And I think at some level, this might be one of those, forged in fire kind of things where you have this big brawl and that the candidate emerges stronger rather than weaker. We'll have to see. But I am a little surprised not to see the ads, as you're mentioning, Proctor.
Yeah, so, I think the good version of this is that her campaign has a different theory of the primary than is kind of conventional wisdom, and that doesn't mean that they're wrong. There have been real changes in the way these primaries work. We're in kind of a new era in terms of how the technology works, in terms of how social media works, and also maybe a new era in terms of what Democratic primary electorates want to see.
It also may just not matter. Right.
True.
The environment may trump all of this.
Haha.
I mean, in a world where we're moving 37 points in Louisiana with someone named Chastity Martinez in Louisiana.
Martinez, yeah.
It's not going to matter what all goes on in this silly primary.
Just so people know what low tax was referencing there, this was another state house special election that happened yesterday. We're recording this on Sunday, February 8th. It happened on the 7th, and again, it was very similar to the results from last week in the Texas SD9 race that we talked about in the last episode. Proctor, do you want to talk about the specifics, or are we good?
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's throw some numbers out there for Chastity Martinez, who is the delegate elect now from, I want to say it was the House District 60 maybe in Louisiana, which yes. Trump won by 13 points.
Senate District 60.
Senate District. Trump won it by 13 points in 2024, and Chastity Martinez put up I believe a 63-37 win. That's an insane swing. Now, this was a special election for a seat that had previously been Democratic held. So the retiring incumbent was a Democrat. So there is some reason to think that there was more Democratic strength in the district than kind of the headline numbers would tell you. But still, you've got geography and demographics that voted for Trump by 13, voting for the Democrat by, what is that, by 26? That's huge. And this is not somebody who had the advantage of incumbency. She's young, new, and exciting. And it looks like it was pretty much a global swing, that it wasn't any particular demographic driving this. It was a lower turnout election for sure. And that may be a reason to think that it won't hold up quite as well in November. But this wasn't like Latinos were super mad, so they turned out heavy. This was just everybody who showed up, regardless of educational background, regardless of race, regardless of age, was somewhere between 30 and 40 points to the left of where they were in 2024.
I will say, just to add a little bit more numbers to this before we move on to talk about the Republican side in Texas. So far, there have been special elections there have been 17 special elections so far in House or state House or state Senate races across the country in 2026 so far. Of those, or the total average swing is 10 percentage points. The 2025 and 2026 combined average is 13 percentage points. There are a couple of pretty big outliers here, and they're in Alabama. So, like, of the 3 races that have swung further to the right from where we were in the 2024 presidential election, 2 of them are from Alabama for an average of like negative 13. You know, it's not like every single special election is going huge towards Democrats, but a lot of them are. And a 10 percentage point swing is material. So, you know, just a little bit of restraint there.
Paul, we got to hit back.
Rest of the country may be swinging towards these damn Democrats, Paul, but not in Bama. All right, let's talk about the Republican side in Texas and the Senate primary. So we had polling this week that showed Cornyn in 3rd place in that primary, which is bad news if you are a national Republican, because as we previously discussed, Cornyn is the candidate that is going to have by far and away the easiest time. He's just a bog standard Republican, basically, in the Senate, which means he's a crazy person, but by the standards of what's on offer from the Texas Republican Party, he's very moderate, in fact. There are 2 candidates ahead of him per the latest polling on this, including Paxton in the lead. I mean, is there any chance that Cornyn wins at this point, do we think? Or is it like what are the odds of...
I mean, the polling could be wrong, but it looks like he's going the wrong direction.
The polling is never wrong. You guys, y'all yelled at me about that 2 years ago. No, the polling's not wrong. Joe's going to come back any day now. No, the polling's right. Just go with the polling.
They do have math on their side.
If the polling is right, it's hard to see a path forward for Cornyn. It's also kind of hard for me to see him dropping out of the race, which means that if you have a situation where things are getting split, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mike, but I think that goes to a runoff if nobody gets a majority in the primary. So, you know, that extends opportunities for rancor on the Republican side, and maybe more to the point, it extends the period that the Republican candidates have to be trying to appeal to their primary base rather than trying to run a GE campaign.
Yeah, I think the thing that would really help Cornyn is if Trump weighed in on his behalf. I think that is extremely unlikely to happen, and therefore is not something that we should really consider in the realm of possibility. And it's, of course, speaks to very Trumpian calculations that even though this would probably be the best thing for Trump, he cannot bring himself to do this because he does not like Cornyn like he likes some of these other people. He wants to be seen as a kingmaker. Any number of reasons he would not support the person who would actually give him a good chance of winning a potentially very important Senate seat for control of the Senate in 2027.
Just to put some other numbers on it, Cornyn is currently priced at 33% on Kalshi, Paxton at 48%, Wesley Hunt, he was the other candidate polling ahead of Cornyn in the most recent data this week, at 18%. So basically 50-50 Paxton, 1/3 chance of Cornyn, and Hunt the remainder.
One thing I don't understand, and this might be because I'm from places where the power stays working when it gets cold. Why do people vote for Ken Paxton? Like, I mean that I'm not doing a bit. He was elected the last time for Attorney General while under like securities fraud investigation, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, and
this guy
it's only come out worse since then. So
that's what I thought. And like, I guess if you were just like checking the R box on every name, I kind of get it. But like, this is not that election. This is the election where like everyone's mad.
Look, sometimes just the raw sexual magnetism of a candidate is enough to get it done.
That was low tax speedrun enjoyer.
Low tax speedrun enjoyer.
That's a Dust Jacket quote right there.
Yeah, but on what book?
Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. That's
the worst book you have ever read.
Yeah, but like it mystifies me. we are not going to see Assad numbers in Texas. And hey, they might still like pull it out, but it just blows my mind that anyone would want this. Possibly including Ken Paxton. Have you seen what being a senator is like right now for Republicans? Like, I don't understand why anyone involved in this process wants the outcome they're going to get.
I can see it from Ted Cruz's point of view, because now it would be a real neck and neck race.
No, it's okay, Ted. Go off to Cancun. It's fine. It's fine. We have this idiot now.
Yeah, if you're Ted Cruz, you're living large right now. If Ken Paxton gets in there, like, you figure Ted is the saddest senator, and then you could have Paxton and Tuberville,
Fetterman.
So you've got, Fetterman.
That's like actually kind of tragic.
Yeah, that one is actually kind of tragic, but Paxton and Tuberville, you've got a little cushion there now. And you know Tuberville's never leaving if he doesn't want to.
Well, he is leaving. He's running for governor.
Is he?
Paul?
Yeah.
Paul?
Why would that's another one?
Thomas stepping out of the Senate, Paul?
Why would he want that? Like, governors have to do work.
I don't get that, or Klobuchar in Minnesota. I don't understand either one stepping into the governor's race when they have a Senate seat. Like,
I kind of see
entirely in favor. Listen, I don't hate her, but that accent, I am all in favor of her going down to state politics.
No. Don't get me wrong. I would rather her be in state politics than in Senate politics, but like, I don't understand from her perspective why she's doing that. Again, same logic applies to Tuberville. I don't understand why either one of them would do that.
I think that's really different.
Okay, why?
Because, like, so Tuberville is an idiot. Like, he is just he's a void. He is a lazy sack of shit void that doesn't, like, why does he exist, right? Like, he exists to do one thing, which in some football cases makes some sense, which is occupies physical space. But, like, in terms of any, like, redeeming qualities, no. But, like, Klobuchar's not dumb. I can see why she would want to do good for her state in, like, an executive role. Who's doing good as a senator?
I don't think he really occupies just space there. I mean, this is a man who lost to Vanderbilt when he was at Auburn. And
actually,
and
he's also way skinnier than I thought, so he's not even doing a great job on the occupying space side.
Yeah. There's that.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected.
Yeah. I mean, with Klobuchar, I think the subtext is that she feels that she's not going to have the future path to Senate leadership that she maybe thought she was going to have a couple years ago. That, it seems like whatever battle within the Democratic caucus is happening under the surface there, it kind of seems like Brian Schatz and Chris Murphy have won it. So...
Oh, Bobby, they're not letting me cook my hot dish up here.
So, I mean, I think that's why she's getting out of the Senate is that whereas previously there was a plausible path towards, majority leader, I don't think she thinks she can be caucus leader anymore.
Yeah, and I think on the Republican side, there's probably a lot of feel that what's the benefit of being in the Senate at this point? You basically have to do what the leadership and Trump wants. You don't have any kind of independence. You really just are taking hits left and right from everybody. But if you're the governor of Alabama, nobody's really going to be complaining about what you're doing in Alabama, particularly at the same, bright, white, hot spotlight that he's getting in national politics. So, I mean, just from a laziness point of view, I could kind of see it there.
Mike, you just let Kalen DeBoer go 9-3 one more time, and you see how they react in Alabama. They will
exactly. That's the important role in Alabama. Who's the governor, right?
Right. They're gonna create like a whole new clan that we haven't even thought of.
I mean, it's the place where the old ball coach being governor will not be the old ball coach, right? Because there's the actual important person who's playing, they're directing the football around there, not right. Some lazy governor guy.
That's right.
Can I just say the one thing I love about Texas is that there's a plausible future right now where the Senate delegation is Ted Cruz and Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah, that rules.
I mean...
And also, there's a plausible future where that Senate race decides to control the Senate, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, North Carolina is going blue. Maine, very, very, very likely to go blue, almost 100%. Alaska would probably be next. Is that, or are we thinking Ohio or Iowa?
I think that's consensus right now, is that Alaska's next. But I haven't really seen polling on Ohio. That race hasn't firmed up quite yet.
Actually, I guess, in a situation where we do have Blexus, maybe their margin is a little narrower than the tipping point is actually Iowa or Ohio for the majority. It's kind of hard to imagine Blexus, but both Ohio and Iowa remain Republican. Yeah, but maybe I don't know.
The scenario where that happens is where the Texas Latino vote swings way harder than the rest of the state.
Yeah. Don't say that about Maine. We have all been waiting to take her out for decades.
George said that and I flinched.
I didn't say it I'm not as confident about Maine as I am about North Carolina, to be clear. North Carolina's locked in. Maine is not. Maine is not locked in.
North Carolina is on a mode so easy that everything else is nightmare. For those of you who have played
Roy
Doom.
Cooper. I'm sorry we have Roy Cooper. I don't know.
Can we clone him and remove the accent?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel everyone keeps saying that Maine, that the lobster, he has been out of my field of view for so long. I forget what he farms in the ocean. But oysters, that's right.
Oysters.
You can see how much I want to think about his existence.
Ed, why do you hate our legendary fucking oysters up here?
We'll talk about that on another show. I'm more sensitive to the fact that everyone I know quit his campaign. But to be fair, after the second disqualifying incident, but yeah, Collins wins. She just does that. I just can't.
Yeah.
I hope George is right, but
we'll see what happens in May, I guess.
Well, I don't think we've had good polling on it recently. I think the most recent poll we had was November, which showed Mills plus 10 over Plattner, 47-37 in the primary. As far as the general, that same poll, that was Pan-Atlantic, they had Collins and Mills tied, and they had Plattner plus 1 versus Collins in the general. So, that is very stale polling at this point. That's not.
There's a couple from the New York Times has a couple on their page where it's even in late November, a Democratic pollster, Plattner plus 1, Collins plus 3 on 2 alternating polls. Oh, sorry. Collins is plus 3 against Mills plus 1, Plattner plus 1. Just it's the numbers say too close to call, but I know how Mainers feel about Susan Collins because I don't understand it, but I know. You hear her just start talking, and then your hand just reaches for the Republican lever, I guess.
So then do we have a situation brewing where we could see North Carolina flip, Ohio, Iowa, Texas, Alaska, but not Maine?
I have to hope that my compatriots are better than that, but I don't know that they are.
That would be pretty funny.
If only I could bet on this somewhere.
Yeah, I do think some of these sort of contingent scenarios are a lot more fun than who wins the Senate or who wins a given race. But, if you want to start doing correlation trading, Mike, instead of astrophysics, there's lots of opportunities for that in the financial industry, just so you know.
Absolutely. I will take you under advisement.
It would not shock me if the Dems won all of those seats and Collins somehow survived. I don't think she's going to. I think that is actually the second off the board after Roy. And then probably either Texas or Ohio, and then Iowa, and then Alaska. Although Alaska's weird, as we've talked about before. So who the hell knows what's going to happen there? You can't poll Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard to get salmon nailed down on a random phone poll.
I do want to ask Mike, okay, kind of lightning round here. How does the universe end? Is it the heat death?
Well, heat death seems like the best bet, which is where basically the universe expands at an ever accelerating rate. Everything gets colder and colder. Eventually, no more stars can fuse hydrogen to helium in their cores. The last low mass stars flicker out in a few trillion years. You know, if you want to read about this, Katie Mack's book is fantastic for this sort of thing. And then who knows what happens after trillions of years? Maybe protons start to decay. Somehow Susan Collins will still be around, but we don't know about that.
Optimal, like, cosmic cockroach. I buy it.
Yeah, but I think that's the best bet. But the thing is, we still really don't know, because we don't know about the form of dark energy that is really driving this accelerated expansion of the universe. Is it constant? Is it diminishing with time? And that will make a big difference in the ultimate fate of the universe. You know, you don't need to update your health plan, though. Again, we're talking trillions and trillions of years at the very least before the exciting stuff starts to happen.
Okay, so the big slurp is not the best bet here.
No big slurp, no big crunch, no other candy bar and or 7-Eleven kind of names happening, that at least not in the poly market, but again, you're never going to collect on these, so don't worry about it.
Okay. Buy or sell, Arch Manning wins the Heisman.
Ooh, and exciting.
You can say I refuse to answer just because we know you're at UT.
Well, I wouldn't take it at even odds, but I think there's not a bad shot that he's, going into the end of the season looking like a Heisman winner potentially there. I think he played really well for the last several weeks of this season. I think they're likely to bring around a lot more talent. Ed looks like he's agreeing with me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No.
Ed has no idea what you're talking about.
Not intense agreement.
See,
okay.
I'm disassociating right now, Mike. So please continue.
So I won't take it at even money, but I would not be surprised to see it happen.
Okay. And we all agree the data center thing on the moon is not going to happen, right?
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Okay.
We haven't been to the moon in any meaningful way since 1972. I don't think.
Yeah, it's been 50 years. Okay, so Mars colony there. Gonna happen in our lifetime?
Huh, I thought Elon's got it next week or something. Don't we have some sort of tweet record that it's happening any day now?
He's about 2 years late, which is strange for Elon. He's usually on time with his predictions.
I've had self-driving in my robot Tesla for 5 years now.
Now, I think, again, the idea that we haven't put a person back on the moon since 1972 does not bode well for getting to a much more difficult destination that we've never gotten to and setting up a colony there. But as usual, I'm wrong most of the time, so take with that what you will. But I would not put any money on in our lifetimes, and that's not because our lifetimes are necessarily that short expectation value.
All right. Well, we have to wrap it up because Mike has to head out. And one of our hosts has a very important day ahead of him because the Seattle Seahawks are, of course, in the Super Bowl. So before we head out, I just want to get a really quick score prediction from everyone here. Mike, let's start with you. What do you see happening in the Super Bowl?
I've got Seahawks defense too good for the Patriots. 24-17 Seahawks.
Low tax?
Oh, so yeah, I always bet on the defense in the Super Bowl. I am also going to go with the Seahawks. I think it'll be competitive. I think it's going to be more like 31-7.
A competitive 31-7, though.
It'll be a competitive 31-7. I think it'll bust open towards the end, but
all right, Ed.
27-21 Seahawks.
All right, I'm going to be a contrarian and say the Pats pull it off. Much to my dismay, I'm rooting for the Seahawks, but I'm going to say the Pats win 16-14, even though I want the Seahawks to win. I'm trying not to be the mush here by saying they'll win.
Why do you hate freedom?
I don't hate freedom.
George.
I hate the terrible world we live in, and sometimes terrible things happen, like, for instance, another Patriots Super Bowl win.
You understand that I live in New England.
Yes,
and
Ed, I do.
And I'm not manifesting this.
I'm not manifesting. I'm being contrarian.
What I want to convey to you, George, we just watched Indiana go 16-0 and defeat the most evil force the world has ever known.
It's true.
In college football.
That's very fair.
I want you to believe in good things.
I'm going to hold my 16-14 Pats. Most important prediction, Proctor. Who you got?
I mean, I got the Seahawks 34-17, and the game's not that close.
All right. Well, let's hope that Proctor's more right about this than me. That is going to be it for Normal Men this week. We hope you had a really fun time watching the Super Bowl, watching Baboni in the Super Bowl halftime show, watching Green Day, who I know Low Tax is extremely excited to see perform. If you have a chance, rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to it. It helps people find us. Thanks so much to our friend Mike for joining us. This is really fun, really cool to talk about stuff that is way outside anything any of us will ever see in person. The universe is big and scary, but thankfully we have very smart people to explain it to us a little bit. For Normal Men in Charlotte, I'm George.
In DC, I'm Proctor Malone.
In outer Florida, I am low-tax speedrun enjoyer.
And in Boston, I'm Ed.
Please feel free to make fun of us for all of our bad predictions about the Super Bowl if they don't pan out.
Except me.
Stay normal, y'all.